Look at this map of Australia. Over the last decade, bank branches have been systematically vanishing from the interior, retreating toward the populated coasts. When a town like Orroroo loses its last branch and ATM, the impact is immediate and physical. Local commerce grinds down, and the shatters when the physical infrastructure required to withdraw those funds is packed up and driven out of town. Framing these closures as simple corporate restructuring ignores the reality on the ground. Banks are actively stripping essential economic life support from regional communities. Financial institutions often frame the shift away from physical currency as an inevitable, modern transition, dismissing those who rely on cash as clinging to nostalgia. But for a local merchant, a physical transaction offers something digital payments cannot: instant, final settlement without intermediary fees or processing delays. The removal of this physical system severely penalizes vulnerable demographics. In remote indigenous communities, where digital connectivity is often unreliable or non-existent, physical currency remains the primary tool for basic survival. We can look to Sweden for a warning. After rapidly phasing out physical currency, severe hardships forced the Swedish government to legally mandate cash protections. Cash access ensures basic inclusion for millions of Australians. Protecting it is a mandatory public duty. The modern global economy runs on invisible, high-speed digital rails that process millions of transactions every single second. This architecture concentrates risk. A purely digital ledger requires an unbroken chain of electricity, intermediary platforms, and telecommunications to function. When a major corporate telecommunications network fails, entire sectors of the economy freeze instantly, leaving citizens unable to buy food or fuel. Physical currency bypasses this entire vulnerable network. It settles transactions instantly and permanently, completely independent of the power grid or a cell tower. Physical currency serves as the ultimate national failsafe, a critical sovereignty asset that maintains economic continuity when digital systems degrade. If a physical currency network provides essential national security, we have to ask why it is being systematically dismantled. This chart reveals the mechanism at play. The downward line shows physical branch numbers declining, while the upward line tracks rising corporate banking profits. Banks are maximizing margins by cutting infrastructure while still extracting high fees, a practice economists call rent-seeking. Rent-seeking occurs when an entity increases its own wealth without creating any new value for society. The daily demand for physical cash distribution remains, but the logistical burden has been quietly offloaded onto Australia Post without fair compensation. This turns a trusted, publicly owned postal network into a heavily subsidized, unpaid extension of the private banking sector. Self-regulation has failed. Private financial institutions are successfully privatizing their digital profits while forcing the public to absorb the massive costs of physical cash distribution. To correct this imbalance, the government must build an economic floor, a baseline of financial access for every citizen. This foundation requires legally designating cash distribution as critical national infrastructure. Simultaneously, regulators must construct a ceiling to cap the disproportionate excess of private banks. Protecting the national currency requires deliberate public architecture to balance the scales against unchecked commercial incentives. Australia Post, with its reach across thousands of communities, is positioned to anchor this secure system. By equipping the Postal Service to expand beyond mail delivery, the government can establish a fully realized, publicly owned banking alternative. This physical network must be supported by strict cash acceptance obligations across the broader economy, ensuring physical currency remains viable everywhere. Maintaining this network is an essential public infrastructure investment. The Commonwealth issues the Australian dollar, and funding its physical distribution is the required price for sovereign stability and public confidence in an increasingly fragile digital age.